Welcome to the Pestle, reviewing and breaking down the movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by the Chick and the Duck. Let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everybody to the Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Monty and Moo Moo, the children's puppets with all the questions and addictions. Wake up and learn with Monty and Moo Moo. Welcome everyone to the Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And we're filmmakers. We make things and we like to review things, movies namely, and see what we can learn about the movie making process and relay that potential intelligence onto you, the listener and YouTuber. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I got a lot of stuff I got to get out of me, Todd.
You need to purge it?
I need to purge it. With that in mind, what are we covering?
Today, we are covering 2013's The Purge. So if you haven't seen this film, please pause this episode, go find it, and watch it, because we're going to spoil all the things.
Yeah, we'll do our best, you know? We'll take a little stroll down story and writing alley and talk about high concepts, agitating the audience, and close calls, and other such stuff and things and stuff.
And a quick synopsis of the film. A wealthy family is held hostage for harboring the target of a murderous syndicate during the Purge, a 12-hour period in which any and all crime is legal. It's written and directed by James DeMonaco. Cinematography by Jacques Jouffret. It's featuring Ethan Hawke as James Sandin, Lena Headey as Mary Sandin, Max Burkholder as Charlie Sandin, Adelaide Kane as Zoey Sandin, Edwin Hodge as the Bloody Stranger, and Rhys Wakefield as Polite Leader.
History has proven this over and over again. We are inherently a violent species. Wars, genocide, murder. The denial of our true selves is the problem. The Purge not only contains societal violence to a single evening, but the countrywide catharsis creates psychological stability by letting us release the aggression we all have inside of us.
Man, they figured it out.
Yeah.
Science.
That's it. They solved it.
Science, baby. And so I guess a couple of questions. You know, obviously I want to hear your general experience through the movie, probably revisiting it for the first time since it came out. I'm assuming you saw it because I feel like everyone did. And so, yeah, I want to hear about that. But I also am curious if everyone walking into this movie has the same thought. This is absurd. This is dumb. As they're walking into the movie. Like, we already know what we signed up for, and that is dumb. And yet we're walking into it anyway. So I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts about just that on its face and how that, if at all, impacted how you watched the movie.
Yeah, I'd seen this, but it's been a decade since I did. And I don't think I saw it in theaters. I think I saw it maybe out. I don't know. But I had the same feeling, you know, like, I don't know. I like movies that are either really fantastical or not. And so this is like in between. And so going in, I had this feeling of like this is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. And yet today, watching it today as opposed to maybe 10 years ago, felt more possible.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
Not that it is, but I don't think that it's possible. But like it felt more possible today than it did 10 years ago when I was watching it. Now, do I think that it's going to happen? No. Do I think that it would, you know, actually reduce crime, you know, overall? No, I don't. I think while I was watching it, I was trying to think, okay, where would an idea like this come from? And I think like what I got is that it stems from, you know, everybody has these crazy momentary thoughts that pop into their head. Like, I want to kill that guy. You know, or I just want to drive into oncoming traffic, or, you know, I don't know, like these just like wild thoughts. And I don't think that 9 times out of 10 people really do it or want to do it. They just happen because your brain just throws things at the wall sometimes and sees to see what sticks, right? Throws like ideas out there. And, you know, like an idea would pop up and you're like, no. And you put it away, right? And I think that that's kind of it's taking that idea to the extreme of like, I have this idea, now I'm going to hold on to it and I'm going to plan it. And now I'm going to execute it, like, you know, pun intended, along with everyone else who's had these ideas on this one day. I think partially, though, because it's a movie, it takes the liberty of that idea being violence instead of that idea being just like another grandiose, non-violent kind of thought. But I think that the ones that stick with us, the ones that we're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to touch that, are the violent ideas, because we don't want to think of ourselves as violent. We don't want to think of ourselves as like being willing to hurt someone else or kill someone else, unless that's what we do as an individual, but most of us don't. And so, yes, it felt kind of like ridiculous going in. And even during like, I think like the setup of just how lackadaisical they are about, okay, tonight is the Purge. I'm just going to like stroll home. You know, I'm not going to turn on the security system until like literally the minute where it happens. Like, no. I'm buckling down a week before or something. Like there is, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a normal thing for them, as opposed to what I think most of us would be. Most of us would be more freaked out. But I guess the other thing is I was trying to look at it through the lens of, this is a different universe. Mm-hmm. You know, so not me as someone who hasn't experienced a Purge and never will, hopefully, someone who I've only experienced a Purge, right? Like the son, who is, you know, the dad basically says, James says, you know, you don't remember what it was like. Okay, so James has lived in a time where there was no Purge, but the son hasn't, and so this is all he's known. But even then, there's this feeling of, you know, humanity kind of like poking its way through. And so I think it's like there's also like this beautiful element to it. Of course, when the son opens the security building, I know I'm yelling in my head, like, you're an idiot. You're such an idiot. God dang it. How are you this old and have gone through this many purges and you're this big of an idiot? Like, really? Seriously? That was the one thing for me, is like, I know this kid doesn't like it and I know that he's scared, but if he's really scared, like, why is he opening the security door? But this is like he's the manifestation of like our conscience, maybe, right? Of just like, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but this is what needs to happen. I need to save this individual.
That's a really good point. And just to quickly jump in, like, I think that's one of the ways that they're agitating the audience, is like when you just said, I was screaming in my head, what are you doing? That's a great way to try to get us to lean in and interact with this universe that they've built. But the other thing that just came to mind is, you're so right. It never occurred to me, this kid has been through like a dozen of these already, and yet here he is. And therefore, I think what they're also doing is taking advantage of the newness, because the first time we're watching this, we're not really thinking about everything this kid has already seen, because this is the first time for us. It feels like the first time for him, just based on the way he's reacting to it. And that's a really fascinating way to approach the psychology of the story you're telling, is to understand what the audience has not experienced, and to kind of lean in and take advantage of that. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, 100%. Excuse me. I think, though, also they do a good job of setting up the neighbors. Yeah. And that whole situation, right? Like the woman at the beginning,
Grace,
the blonde woman. Yeah. I hate her. Yeah. Like already, immediately, I'm like, oh, she's the worst. I hope she dies first. But then at the end, when the neighbors come and they shoot everybody else, right? We already did the spoilers. Mm-hmm. And they shoot everybody else and they save the wife. We're thinking, okay, there's some good here, but no, there's not. I do think it's a little bit lazy, the writing in the reason why they want to kill him. Like, okay, if I have a moment where I'm like, God, I want to kill that guy or something, it's not because he makes more money than me. Like, that's not, or like rubs it in my face or is like a total DB. You know what I mean? Like, it's because he hurt me or he hurt somebody I cared about or something like, it's like there's a real reason, you know? Now, maybe that's not lazy writing. Maybe it's calling something out of like the haves always want to have and want to have more. And which is probably the reason, you know, why that's their reasoning. Because you and I are watching this thinking, that's not a reason. You're an idiot, you know? But for somebody who is a have and is defined by being the have, then that kind of maybe makes sense. And they want to pound that idea home.
Yeah,
right?
and I think they got so close to having a really interesting conversation between the neighbors because, to your point, like, there's this conversation I think they're starting to butt up against about classism, right? They're having that to some degree with the homeless guy, right? The bloody stranger who rolls in and he's being hunted down by these, I don't know, they're not, it's hard to tell if these are like frat boys or what they are, but they're clearly got some kind of classist, you know, picture in their head about people who belong in this world and people who don't and need to be taught a lesson, right? And they're so close to having that same conversation with the neighbors. And I think they could have enhanced it or really pounded it home by calling it out because they don't. The neighbors are upset because they had a new addition onto their house that came from them buying security upgrades from James, right? That was the whole impetus for they're jealous. There's a jealousy there. But what would have been better, and I think more realistic, is if they didn't get a new addition onto their house. Because what James says at the beginning of the film is, can you believe it? 10 years ago, we could barely even pay our rent. Like, we didn't know how we were going to make rent. And now we're looking at buying boats. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that something or something? And that's, I think, kind of tipping his hat towards the American dream of being able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of idea. And if instead of they got a new addition onto the house, it had become, we bought this house.
Yeah.
Now
the house is a part of the story.
The house is a part of the story. The fact that they are in this neighborhood is a new thing. They shouldn't even be here. Y'all are only here because of what you sold to us. And you are not really one of us. And now you got this whole class dynamic really popping off between people who are old money and people who are new money. And new money isn't one of us. You don't belong here. And so now you can really get into the finer points of class structure and the economic caste system that you could start to make an argument about. And they blew it. They were right there on the goal line, and they just a couple of sentences. They don't have to do anything different. Like, no structure of the film changes. No scene in any situated edit changes. It's all about just changing the dialogue, and it was right there for the taking.
Dude, I didn't even think of that, because what I was going to suggest was different, but I like this idea. What I was going to suggest was to develop the interaction with the neighbors more. Maybe it opens with them all at dinner, like a dinner party, so that we get to hear a little bit more from the neighbors and maybe even, I don't know, maybe even like them in a way, but maybe they have like some insinuation that we've been here for 20 years or whatever, what I mean? Instead of opening in a car. But I like your idea better. Like, honestly, it's you don't change anything else. You just change a couple of sentences really in the script, right? And that changes so much. Wow, that is, the more that I think about it, the more crazy that is. And it just really points to how important writing is, how one or two lines can change the entirety of the meaning of a film. That's crazy.
It's pretty nuts. And this film, one thing I did like about it is, it's an 85-minute runtime. So the fact that they botched some of these things gets a little bit more forgivable because they don't drag us through an extra 20 minutes of it, right? But there's so many little things like that, like the family dinner talk before they trigger the lockdown. Very forced, right? There's nothing organic happening at all at that table. And Ethan Hawke is doing a Herculean job of bringing life into his character and into the family dynamic. But at least it's brief, right? And there's a number of things like that I felt like, you tweak a few things here and there. This goes from, and we still haven't even gotten to what we actually think about the movie itself. We're still kind of dancing around the concept. But another thing I felt like they could have upgraded was the humor. There's absolutely no humor at all. There's no attempt at humor, which based on like the quality of the writing is probably for the best. But with a little bit better writing, light humor I feel like can deepen our connection with the characters, which then deepens the tension and the horror. Like if you can make us laugh a little bit on the front end, you'll make us that much more afraid and tense on the back end. And we just never, because I feel like families have a little bit more like humor between them. The dad could be making a little more dad jokes or something and there's just no attempt at really building any kind of dynamic personalities. It just feels like, you know what, this is about humor, this is about horror, we're going to get straight to the horror, which I also can respect. Like they don't try to make this something it isn't, which is probably one of the keys to success that they had in the box office. But yeah, anyway, I feel like, to your point about the writing, like it changes everything. But I also wonder if they knew the writing isn't that strong. So let's cut out. I bet there's probably 5 or 6 scenes on the cutting room floor that could have put this into hour 35 territory. And they're like, nah, let's go with our strengths here.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Ethan Hawke like holds this whole thing together, honestly. I think that there are some really good twists. The boyfriend trying to kill Ethan Hawke, I think that was okay. I don't think it's a good twist. I think it's interesting and entertaining to get me to the next stage of the story in the movie. I don't buy it in reality. This guy who loves his daughter, he wants to kill him because he wants to be with his daughter. Don't you think his daughter is gonna like hate him after he kills her dad? Like, come on, bro. You haven't thought this through. So that, or maybe he doesn't care about his daughter and he just wants to kill him. I don't know. Whatever. It was interesting, and I kind of expected it, but I kind of didn't at the same time. So interesting when it happened. I do like story-wise how we go away from the guy they let into the house, right?
Oh, the stranger.
Or the stranger. They go away from him for a long time. So after they capture him and do that whole torture scene, I was like, oh God, when she keeps stabbing him with the letter opener to get him to stop, that was rough. They kind of leave him, in the story. You almost forget about him until the end. And I think that that's a really good thing that movies do at times. They make you forget about, unless you're really paying attention, like we are paid to do, then you forget about the bloody stranger until there's a moment where there's no way for our heroes to get out of a situation, and then magically this guy shows up and is getting out of the situation. And he's motivated to help them because they didn't kill him or they didn't give him up, They also didn't untie him because they didn't want him to hurt them, but he knows, they're not going to give me up. So he's motivated. And I think that was, maybe tropey, but honestly, this is 2013 as well. So there's been a lot of stories, I think, that are like that in the last 13, 14 years. So I think that was good. And then the twist at the end of the neighbors wanting to kill him, I saw that kind of coming, but also the way that it happened, I think was well done, where they, they save them, right? So you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe they're not total, a-holes, and they're going to help them. Nope, they wanted them for themselves. Okay, all right, I get it. And that I do, I'm pointing out all the things I like because I want to, but I do like in the end how she, right at the very last minute, she tries to grab the gun, and then Mary, it's like slams her face on the table. I was like, yeah, don't kill her, because that's not who you are. I'm glad they didn't go that route, but she's like gushing blood, and she looks awful. I thought that was a good moment there. I felt a little bit like when the bloody stranger just like walks away, and she says, "Are you going to be okay?" And he says, "Yeah, for a year."
True.
Like like he just saved your life, and you're just going to say thank you and like let him leave? Like, no, like, you want to have lunch or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, like he's like, bring him in, like become, instead of just like letting him leave. Like, if we're really talking about classism, right? You're letting the guy who saved you, I mean, like just like leave and go back to his like, lower class, like homeless life while you stay in your nice, super rich house in your super rich neighborhood. That kind of defeats the purpose to me. Like, invite him in. Now we're continuing to tell the classist story, but like trying to upend it a little bit, right? Where like he does belong and you do belong to both sides. We all belong together. So why can't we break bread, or why can't we like have a conversation? Why can't we find out more about each other? Because we know nothing about him.
Yeah.
We don't even know if he's homeless.
True.
They say he's homeless.
Right.
Like the kids trying to kill him say he's homeless swine or whatever, but he never says almost anything, So yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was entertaining. I think that the one thing that Blumhouse does really well is they pick like entertaining like ideas and stories. And that's why, like, before we started hit record, you were telling me about a new idea you had, and I just love the ideas that you come up with, because I was saying to you earlier, they're internal, they're internalized. Yes, you see an external film happening, and it's external, but like the real story is happening inside. And I think a lot of ideas that Blumhouse does, if you look internally, you can pull something out of that. And that's why I love it. And the best stories are the simplest ones that you internalize. So you leave asking yourself questions, or while you're watching the film, you're asking yourself questions. You're saying, why do I feel this way? Why is this making me feel this way? Why do I feel awkward? Or why do I feel like this is stupid? Or why do I feel like that was really scary? Or why do I feel like I identify with this horrible thing? And I think that in a lot of films that they do, not all of them, but a lot of films they do a really good job of that. So
nice. And so you were entertained. Would you say you liked the film, or is this just not? Okay.
No. I would say I'm entertained, but I again, and just pointing out and I wouldn't even call it lazy writing. I would just call it, maybe they didn't think of that idea. I think that in this script they probably had this interesting idea, and they did what they could. And now looking back on it 13 years later, like we can easily say, oh, you know what? They missed this. So I'm going to forgive them a little bit, but there are plenty of great films that are really well written internally, that have an external meaning, that didn't miss the boat, and even, especially now, you pointing out those couple of lines, if they could have changed a couple of lines, how big of a change it would have been. Now we're looking at a film that, like, I don't know what the budget was, but it had to be really small here. Now we're looking at a film that's like punching above its weight class. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously this made a boatload of money. Like, everybody saw this movie, right? Which also kind of says something, right? If what sold this movie was not it's a really good movie, or it's really well written, or it's really well acted, is the idea of being able to do this legally, to kill for one night legally, and that brings people to the box office. Whew. I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. So. Yeah, I would say I didn't like it, but I was entertained. Yeah,
That's a fair description. And I think it's a fair way to approach a movie. Like, you don't have to love a movie in order to be entertained by it. I'm just so impressed with this movie because of how absurd the concept is. And yet we're all showing up out of curiosity. And it doesn't hurt our ability to enjoy it. And in fact, it might even enhance it, right? Because we do want to see what society would do in the situation, even though we're rejecting the situation out of hand. Like, that's a really crazy way for me to walk into this movie and be like, oh, this is so lame. Let's see what happens. I love that. And yeah, the budget was small, $3 million budget. $3 million, and domestically it made $64 million, and internationally almost another $25 million. So like, it made almost $90 million on a $3 million budget worldwide. Yeah.
We have been doing, I'm looking straight at you. Everybody watching. We have been doing this podcast for 7 years. And in that entire time, we have always been talking about the Blumhouse model and how it will save Hollywood because we need more ideas. And how do you get more ideas made? You
Cheaper.
make a film that makes money. And so you can put more money into more ideas and more films. Blumhouse is the freaking king of this. Paranormal Activity, The Purge, like hundreds and hundreds of % gain on their investment. $3 million, and this thing made almost 100? Are you shitting me? Unbelievable in this market. Can you imagine any film, I mean, I'm even including Nolan films, any film making the return that The Purge, that you just told me that The Purge made? That is what, okay, so I can't do math. 30, 100, it's a 3,000% return, right? Because $3 million, 100% return is $3 million.
Yeah.
So if you make 90, that's 3,000% return. Am I wrong?
I think that's right. Yeah.
That's insane. How is that not like the biggest thing that's happened in filmmaking ever? Like, that's crazy.
Man, I worked on this project a while back. I don't even put a time frame in it, that we got from a reference. So from a referral. So like, someone said, oh, we want to make this thing. And they had an agency they were working with. The agency came up with an idea, and the client was like, yeah, we want to do that. And the agency was like, yeah, but we can't do it. We'll find someone who can. Okay. So the agency went to another agency and said, hey, we want to do this thing. Can y'all do it? And this second agency was like, no, we can't, but we know someone who can. And that agency reached out to us, the third agency. All agencies got paid, right? Like, the agency, that second agency didn't do anything. And part of me thinks there was actually another agency in the middle there, but for the sake of argument, I'm going to say there wasn't. It was just 3 total agencies involved. That second agency didn't do anything. Literally, when we talked to them, we said, just stay out of our hair. Give us support. Be a little bit of a liaison, but we'll handle it. We'll take care of it. And I'm pretty sure they still made like 50, 60 grand. I don't know, a lot, for sitting on their hands and just saying, dial this number. The more hands I get into the cookie jar, the more cookies you need, right? For everyone to get fed. I can't help but wonder if this is a part of the issue when we see these $200 million movies, $150 million movies. I don't know. Now, there is a crazy amount of visual effects that begin to get mixed into the equation. And so that becomes a whole other thing. And I don't think anyone's going to make an argument that VFX companies are getting overpaid, right? That's not going to be anyone's argument. So I don't know if it's a combination of just too many hands in the cookie jar or just too much reliance on big budget films needing to be big visual effects films. But I do think there is something to the idea of what smaller films could we be making that are, interesting, high concept, that don't need, $100 million. Because there's been movies in the past year that you and I have covered that were like, this movie cost what? I don't know if I see that on screen. Okay. Now, I don't know, again, because I don't work in these size of projects. I don't know where that money is actually going. Who knows? But there is something to the idea that you're talking about of you could be making these, okay, maybe $3 million at this point, 13 years on, a little bit crazy. Maybe it doesn't have to be 3 million. Maybe it needs to be 10 million. Cool. That still leaves a lot of space to create some really interesting experiences for an audience to engage in, let alone at this kind of runtime. I love the 85-minute runtime. I don't think we get enough movies in this range. And in fact, I think we could do a lot more films that are 2 hours now that could be 90 minutes. I really love, you know what I mean? Like 85 to 95 minute runtimes, I think are really cool. And you can do a lot with that the audience will get a lot out of, and will mean that you need to tighten your idea up so that just the biggest bang for the buck comes into play, that trims your budget, maximizes, theatric windows or screenings so that, you can book out the same theater, 2 or 3 more times in a day and have that many more audiences moving through. And everyone's winning. Like the audience walks out feeling like, I wanted 10 more minutes. That's what you want. You don't want an audience walking out saying, I could have really used 10 less minutes.
Yeah. And if I could just also interrupt here, because I just want to address that too. I think the only critique I could have on Nolan films is that they're all so long, and that's fine. I love a long movie,
with the exception of Dunkirk, which was a very tight 90.
Right? Yes. I want to see, like, okay, but that was how many films ago? 3 films ago? 4 films ago?
Yeah, something. It was after Interstellar, but before Tenet. I don't know.
Okay, so
falls.
Tenet, and
Oppenheimer.
And Oppenheimer, 3 hours. And now we're going to have the Odyssey, which is going to be that. But it's the Odyssey. Yeah. And he picks like these giant things. But the only reason I'm saying this is because he defines Hollywood now. Mm. And if he puts out 2.5-hour movies all the time, 3-hour movies all the time, then people going to to movies are going to expect them to be long or there won't be quality. Right? Because they're also associating Nolan with like the best. Mm. So if Nolan can make the best 90 minutes, now all of a sudden we're back to this like manageable story that everyone is going to say is great because it's freaking Nolan, and he doesn't, even the stuff that we're like, it's still really amazing. No. Now we have a standard, right? So it would be nice, maybe his next one, because he's talked about doing a horror film next. Yeah. It would be nice to have a 90-minute horror film from Christopher Nolan that kicks you in the dick, for 90 minutes and then gets out. That would be fantastic, right? So yes, anyway, my point is like, yes, a great 85, 90-minute film will just like leave you wanting more. And I think that's fantastic. Maybe you'll go back to see it again. Or to your point, it's great for theaters because then you can have more showings in a day. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a really interesting point. Like maybe it is part, Nolan creating these epics that everyone thinks they can emulate, because whatever you feel about Oppenheimer, watching that movie, it doesn't feel its runtime. It feels a little bit shorter because he knows how to create an experience that just moves. There's so much flow that suddenly you look up and like, man, how long is this thing? But it takes not everyone can do that. And so whenever I run across something like The Purge, I'm like, yeah, you can do that. I mean, one of my favorite movies in recent years has been Petite Maman, Celine Sciamma, and that's a 75-minute film. Like, there's no, like, I wouldn't go lower than 75 for a theatric experience, but there's no reason if your story isn't like moving enough, you can't tell these shorter runtimes. And so I have a lot of love for it. And I think that also contributed to the Purge's ability to rack up some nice, $64 million domestic, because you know what? That opening weekend is your big weekend. And if you have a terrible movie, what you don't want is a really long runtime that prevents as many people as possible as seeing it that opening weekend, who then go on to tell everyone else, yeah, don't watch that,
Mm-hmm.
But that first weekend is so important, and the more people you can cram into a theater, the better. And that way, if it's a bad movie, word can't get out fast enough because everyone's going to watch it. So you've maximized your potential. But yeah, everything that's fun about this movie is still going to be fun, even though it's not a very good movie on the whole. And there's some other elements that I really find that are interesting, which is the Purge itself within the universe has kind of this religious devotion to it. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. Like, everyone talks about it as if it's hallowed. And the people who clearly don't think it is a really good thing kind of keep their mouths shut. Like, the mom clearly doesn't like it, but she never says that she doesn't like it. At least I don't remember her saying it out loud. The daughter clearly doesn't like it. And she kind of just has this tone vibe about her, but I don't know that she really ever says anything hardcore about it. It's more of do you remember her saying something?
No, you're right. It's just like this tone.
And I'm
thinking.
I love that. And the cult guy, the freak at the door, he's got this weird like vibe to him, right? And he's got that smile. What a great casting choice. I know they cast him.
I'm glad you said that,
because I was going to say that too. Right?
He's so good.
Like, it's perfect. And he nails it. Like, he knows how to deliver the lines. I love that camera angle. That's not where a doorbell camera would be, right? That's not where we put but they put it high so that he's looking up, and it's got this kind of godlike eye, like he's looking up, praying to God, and all in together, it kind of creates this really crazy cult vibe around it. And I love that, because I think there's this element around the ease of violence. There's this callousness around violence, right? He kills his buddy, and it's nothing to him. Like, he points it out. I love that he points it out. He's like, that was my friend. I don't even know you. And so the implication being, right, imagine what I'll do to you when this is what I'll do to someone that I know and like. And so there's this commentary about our country that's kind of being run through this film about our ability to kind of become numb to violence. And there is something to that. Like, we have become crazy numb and to some degree even callous around violence. And this movie is putting a finger on it. And it's encouraging us to imagine the extreme end of it. Where does this all lead if we don't actually come together and say, maybe this isn't good? Maybe there's another way to live life. Because at the end of the day, if you can't feel safe in your own home, where can you feel safe? And these people, even boarded up and with this crazy security gate, they can't find a way to even guarantee violence won't find them at the end of the day. I don't know. I had an idea that I was formulating around that, and I just never got around to,
it's okay. I think that, I mean, we've said it before on this podcast. Like, I fully agree that, like, we are desensitized in films. I'm not saying that films are bad for that. I think that filmmakers need to take in general, we need to take death more seriously. Because, like, in reality, like, if somebody dies, it's a big deal. Like, we've said it before, there are so many people around people who die that we never see. And I know that might not be part of the story, but it should be in a lot of cases. And because it's not, it's just like, another death is just another death. they'll drag that body away or whatever. That body will just stay there forever, and we'll leave and we'll go to the next scene, and we've forgotten about that. That's happened. And again, that's like part of the story. Fine. But I'm still waiting for the part of the story that like visits the seriousness of an instance that might feel like in a normal film, a throwaway moment, you know?
Yeah.
Like something that just happens because it's supposed to happen. Somebody dies because a bunch of people have died. Yeah, but let's visit that. Like that, why is that? How does that affect everything else? You know, I know they've had some films about that have gone there, but I think that it's been a long time since we've had that, and I would like to see a little bit more of like that being serious. I mean, I think that the Coen brothers do it really well. You don't ever feel safe in a Coen brother film. Like your characters, I think you talked about it last week. What is it? The
plot armor.
Plot armor. Or was that last week, or was that in our short? I can't remember.
Yeah, that was last week. Stranger Things finale.
Okay, yeah. Plot armor is like since you told me that too, I've watched several films this week, and since you told me that, like I can't unsee it. It's kind of like you've revealed the man behind the curtain. Yeah. The Wizard of Oz is not really the wizard, and so it's hard for me to unsee that now. And so now I look at films that like the Coen brothers make, and I have more respect for them because there is no plot armor in a lot of them. You never know what's going to happen. And I love that because now it's more serious for me as a viewer if, the main character dies 45 or 30 minutes into the movie. Okay. Oh man, nothing is safe. I don't feel safe as a viewer now. I can't latch on to anybody because they might be gone in 5 minutes. And so in a movie like this too, and I'm not going to forgive how long ago it was made because 2013 wasn't that long ago, In a movie like this though, it doesn't really give me that sense of danger, even though the dad dies, even though James dies in the end, it doesn't really give me that sense of danger because it's in the end. Like I don't have time to mourn him because it's already over. But if he died 20 minutes into the movie, now everything is dangerous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if it's Ethan Hawke dying 20 minutes into a movie, now, and I'm not saying that's what they should have done, but that's the kind of stuff that like I lean towards. So, I don't know.
Agreed. I'll run through just a couple more notes around agitating the audience. Like this is just a way for us to engage, right? To have us lean forward or yell in our minds, as you literally said earlier. And one of those, the other side of that moment where the kid is letting in the stranger is whenever, we were watching him, the son, Charlie, runs up and he's like, come on, hurry. And we're seeing this kid trying to save this guy's life, and the guy pauses before running. And we're just like, what are you pausing for? Just run, like stop. We're screaming for him to hurry up. And I love that. That's just that's a little trick to get us to like in our heads, like start trying to root and engage with the film. Same thing whenever I think the son is kind of talking to his mom. The mom is having this conversation with her daughter right after the dude dies, her boyfriend. And now the son is poking out of the bedroom like, Mom. And like, shut up. Like every parent knows exactly that moment. Like, Mom. And she's like, what? And you're going to want to see this. And for us, we're just like, just say it. What is it? Speak. Say it out loud.
Yes.
And we're all kind of screaming this in our head. And that's the same thing. You can only reveal things for the first time once, definitionally, right? And so he can't just be like, there's someone coming. I mean, he could, but then you're going to tell us, and then you're going to tell us again, right? There's someone coming. And then she walks in, and then we see, oh, there's someone coming. Like, you've just repeated yourself. When we try to, in a movie experience, reduce the number of times you hear something for the first time, because it loses its impact the second time. And so let us experience it in its fullness the first time through. So this idea of teasing it up, you're going to want to see this. leads us into, well, what is it? What is it? What is it? Okay, here it is. So this leads me into all of these close calls. This is one of those things that did rub me the wrong way in this movie, which is the number of like these little Deus Ex Machinas that kind of save everyone. And there's some that are more interesting than others. One of the close calls is the son gets found, right? The guy pops out, then drags him across the room, and he gets his gun out. He's about to kill the kid. And then his dad pops up from behind. Bang, 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 bang. Right? And one, I love the gunshot backlighting the invader. Like, that's a really cool way to light that, is using the gun itself as the lighting trick. Because now we hear the gunshot, we see the light. You don't have to, I wouldn't be surprised if there was no visual effects or special effects at all. The guy just falls down and nothing. It's just a shirt that hasn't been ripped, or maybe they ripped it beforehand. But I love it. But his dad rescues him, right? And it's just kind of like, oh, I didn't know his dad would be there. Okie dokie. And then the dad, this is one that I really liked, was when Ethan Hawke, right, James, goes crazy on 3 of those attackers, right? And he holds his own. Like, that's a really nice wrestling match between all 3 of them. He gets one of them. The next one jumps on him. He's got her, and then suddenly another one pops through the window. Like, that's just a fun, engaging fight scene. And he gets them all. And it's like, oh, crap. Oh, that was a nice action scene where no one came to his rescue. We had to watch him earn the victory. And then the ringleader, the freak, the polite freak, pops out, stabs him. Like, ooh, didn't see that one coming. That's also satisfying. What was less satisfying for me is watching the mom get captured. She's about to be stabbed. And then the neighbor pops out and like rescues her. I liked watching the neighbors coming through the yard, through the footage, and what do you call that? The house camera security stuff. And that to me was really interesting to watch the neighbors coming through, smoking people. A little less interesting to watch the neighbor just kind of pop up as the mom's about to get stabbed. I don't know. It just didn't feel emotionally true, or there was just something about it that felt like I wanted to see the mom at least kind of earn her moment. Like, okay, she gets one of them, and then she's about to get got by someone else, and then the neighbors rescue her from that, maybe, is a way to loop in the neighbors while also giving the mom a moment of her own kind of heroism. And then we see the mom, dad, and the son are cornered. They're about to be killed. The daughter rescues them. And so it's just kind of these people coming around the corner, sight unseen, suddenly shooting. That you can only kind of do that once. Like, you do it 3 or 4 times, which they do 4 times at least, because the family's about to be killed by the jealous neighbors, and then the stranger rescues them. So I think maybe having the dad rescue the son and maybe the stranger rescue the family are 2 ways that you can get around that. Those other couple, you kind of need something else happening. I think it's just more satisfying if you can have characters earn their way out of a tight jam. Now that gets into more writing. Like, how do you set up their ability to do that ahead of time in a way that doesn't feel like they set it up? Because some setups don't lead anywhere. Like the kid having his heart rate thing has no real payoff.
Yeah.
That's just kind of a random thing. We watch it spike whenever the stranger is like needing help. And that's kind of it. That's the end of that weird little doohickey. Okay, I guess. Yeah. The other thing that I felt like was a setup that never pays off was we're kind of waiting for the dad to come back to life. Like, I don't think his death was significant enough because he just kind of fades away and that's it. And so we're kind of waiting for the dad to come back to life, and he doesn't. Instead, the stranger comes to their rescue. I guess, I think if you're going to do that, you need to either let the dad come back and then get killed, and then let us see, oh crap, now there's no one left to rescue us, or really show the dad dying in the first place. And maybe he's the first one that gets killed by the neighbors, and now that's when the stranger comes in and rescues the family. I don't know, but there was the stuff around James just didn't really feel squared away. before it all kind of comes to a head. I don't know. Were you kind of waiting for the same thing?
I definitely was. And I think part of it was everybody dies quickly from gunshots and stuff, or like an axe in the back, which the guy gets the axe in the back and then he just dies. Like, I don't know. I don't think that happens, honestly. Whatever. But they die instantly. But our hero takes forever. Like, not forever, but he takes a long time. You know, he gets stabbed, it's just different from everything else. Everyone else dies instantly with gunshots, but he gets stabbed. And maybe, but I think, and so because of that, we don't know when the death actually happens, and it's not really, you're right, it's not really solidified that he's here, now he's not here, you know? Because I guess it happens on the stairs, and we do have the moment, but it just takes a long time to get there. So anyway, I agree with you, I think, because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah. The last thing, there's something that the kid says, and I think this is getting into a little bit of the heart of the film, pun intended or not intended, is the kid at the dinner table makes this comment about his day in history. We learned about the history of tonight, talking about the Purge. And then in English, I wrote a story about a man whose love is so powerful that it can kill people. So he cuts out his own heart. And I thought that was interesting because I really thought that was talking about the dad and his ability to provide for his family, protect his family. He loved them so much that he would kill for them as well as die for them. And he does. But then I also wondered, maybe he's actually talking about America, a country that, you know, loved the idea of freedom so much that to some degree it codifies killing people. Whether you're talking about death row or self-defense, you are allowed to kill people in our country. And I'm not against that, to be clear. Necessarily all of it anyway. Death row we could, you know, talk about, I guess. But conceptually, the ability to protect and self-protect. But the idea that it was so powerful that it decided to cut out its own heart is really interesting. It's almost a self-defeating, or like, I don't know how to stop what I do, therefore I'm going to kill myself. Because to me, it sounds like the kid learned about the history of the Purge, and in response to that, wrote a story about how he really felt about it. This country that created the Purge, for this kid, felt like the next logical solution here is to kill yourself as a country, because there's no logical end to killing other people. Mm-hmm. The only logical end is, you know, self-destruction. And so I feel like, I don't know if this writer just didn't know how to land all his ideas into the same script, or maybe he originally wrote it and they were like, let's back away from all this stuff in a rewrite, which happens.
Yeah,
I don't know, but there's so many ingredients to this story around the themes about violence and what it can do to you and classism, that I just can't help but wonder if there was a better story that got missed or just got avoided entirely on purpose. But I'd be interested to see maybe the original first draft versus the shooting draft, or maybe the final edit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the level of fantasticalism is the thing here. It's like, if this were, it's just fantastical enough. It's not fantastical enough to warrant it being just entertaining, right? It's that would be like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Super fantastical, right? You're just going to be entertained. Whatever can happen, can happen. There doesn't need to be a deeper meaning. You don't have to like go home and wonder, what was that ending all about? It's going to be given to you, right? But it's fantastical, so it's totally entertaining. This is grounded in a world, like a world that we know and understand, and yet it's just fantastical enough to be entertaining, but not to only be entertaining. It also should have a meaning to it. Like there's like there's this fantastical line, and once you pass it, you don't really need too much of a deeper meaning. It's just going to be entertaining. This is like right here below the line, where it's not reality. It's different than that, but there still needs to be some kind of meaning and behind why the fantasticalness is there, right? Like, why is the purge there? And the meaning needs to be within the characters, within them, not with necessarily even within society. So that's why I loved your idea of taking it being they don't belong here. And so the way that they play their characters is they maybe they have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Because how many people like get a new job or like buy a house or whatever in this area where they've never been able to live before and they're used to not having money and feel like one day they're going to find me out. I don't belong here, you know? And usually that never happens, right? It's in our own head, but that's the point. It's you know, so, and this just doesn't really have that. And that's why I feel entertained, but not satiated at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Definitely don't feel satiated. There it is. Nice. Yeah, I think that's really all my notes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, any final thoughts?
No. Again, I think I just had my final thoughts.
Fair
what
enough.
I just said. Yeah.
Fair enough. Nice. What are you going to recommend this week?
Okay, so I'm just going to recommend a quote. So I told you before we started filming that we watched WandaVision yesterday, and I love Vision. I just love what he says. He just has these great little moments of things that he says that are, I mean, obviously, Paul, what's his name? Paul, who plays Vision? Yeah, Paul Bettany is just I love him. I think he's fantastic and he's a great Vision. Anyway, he has this line that he says to Wanda in one of the flashbacks where he says, grief is love persisting. And I think I just, for some reason, and even I was watching it with my son, and even he said, whoa, when he said that. And we've watched WandaVision before. My son's going through the Marvels again. And we've seen it before, but for whatever reason, watching it this time, that line hit both of us, and he's 12, at the same time of thinking like, wow, it just made sense. And to the point where I told my wife it later because I thought it was just so beautiful and necessary. I think a lot of times we like look at something like grief and we think it's purposeless. And while that's an easy way to look at it, and maybe true also, the other truth is that the reason why you might feel that is because you still, like if you lost somebody, you still love that person, right? Just because they're gone doesn't mean you stop loving them. And so it's the persistence of love. If you stop loving somebody the moment they die, then you don't grieve them. And it's just made so much sense to me and to my son. So I'm going to recommend that. Just that quote.
Well said, man. I'm going to recommend, this was tough. So in 1971, two films came out that might, be used as inspiration for something like The Purge. Because there's been a lot of films like this, right? Strangers attacking a family in a house. Literally, The Strangers, for instance. But there's one called Straw Dogs that has Dustin Hoffman from 1971. That's same idea and concept. But I'm going to recommend another film that came out in 1971. Very similar concept, but more science fiction. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. If you've never seen that, you should probably, make sure you have a strong constitution for violence because it's very violent. Very dark. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. If you haven't seen that before, it's worth it just as a film buff and, watching things that really set a tone for films that would come later. And I think A Clockwork Orange, you'll see a lot of inspiration from a lot of movies that took from Clockwork Orange. And so, yeah, check that out if you haven't before. And probably, I don't know, watch it by yourself because It's a lot. It's a lot to process.
I haven't seen it.
Oof, yeah. Well.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all I'll
Enough
say
said.
about that. Stay tuned for next week. We take a look at the new 28 years later, The Bone Temple. So we'll see what Alex Garland cooked up with that. I know he wrote it, and I think Nia DaCosta directed this one, though. And so not Danny Boyle coming back. We'll see someone else take a crack at it. And so, yeah, 28 years later, The Bone Temple next week. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, subscribe, drop us a note, leave us a review. Let us know if there's something you find interesting. If you want to comment on this episode, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/thepurge.
And today's quote of the day, oh man, is a doozy. It's from Malcolm X, and it is perfect for this episode. I don't favor violence. If we could bring about recognition and respect of our people by peaceful means, well and good. Everybody would like to reach his objectives peacefully, but I'm also a realist. The only people in this country who are asked to be nonviolent are black people.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong statement. Obviously, Malcolm X is not known for being, tepid or reserving his thoughts. And I have a great deal of respect for him. And that's just a really interesting perspective when you're watching something like The Purge about who in this film or in these stories are allowed to be violent, who, is judged to a higher degree when they are violent. Like the Bloody Stranger is called homeless. He's obviously black. He's not the only black character, but the other one is one of the rich people. I don't think she has very many lines, maybe 2 or 3 lines. But there is something that's being commented around class and where you're supposed to be in society, and who's allowed to, take up arms and, be violent and purge. I don't know. I don't want to weigh in too heavily. I think Malcolm X said enough, but I find it interesting just around the conversation around violence in our culture and who gets more harshly judged for violent acts, and who gets more forgiveness and grace, so to speak. I'll stop there.
I would like to see this Rhys Wakefield as the Joker one day.
Yeah.
Or like what he would look like, because he's got his smile is crazy. My God. Anyway, I had a great time talking about this. I think this is it went a lot deeper than I expected it to. So Great insight there, man. Yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe, review us wherever you get your podcasts. Share us with your friends. It all helps a lot. If there's a comment that you want to leave, please let us know what you think. And if there's a film that you want to see us talk about or pick apart or discuss, please let us know. Maybe we will cover it one day. Until then, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies.